Red Origins by Hazel B. Kelly. Chapter 1. The war room beneath Mukalena Prime had not seen daylight in 20 years, and neither, some mornings, had the Queen. Zara stood at the long table with her palms flat against the map of the Western Front, listening to 5 councillors argue about grain the way men argued about things they had never once gone without. General Abessier's voice cut through the others first, the way it always did, not loud, simply certain, the certainty of a man who had spent 40 years being the last word in every room he entered. Your Majesty, the granaries in the eastern districts are already at 1/3 of what they held this time last year. If we divert another shipment to the front, we risk unrest we cannot afford while we are already fighting a war on the other side of the sky. And if we don't divert it, said Councillor Ndlovu, we risk an army that no longer has the strength to hold that line at all. Ask General Routendo what her soldiers are eating this week and tell me which unrest you'd rather manage. As it happens, Zara said, I can ask her myself. The comm crystal at the centre of the table pulsed once, twice, and steadied into the pale blue light that meant a live line held open across more distance than any of them in that room could properly picture. Rutendo's voice came through thin, overlaid with the low hum of a station that never fully went quiet. Your Majesty. General, give the council what you gave me an hour ago. There was a pause. Not hesitation, Zara knew, just the particular economy of a woman who did not waste words on people who could not act on them fast enough to matter. 12 dead at Kadiri Ridge 2 nights past, 4 more unaccounted for. The line is holding for now, but holding on rations I would not feed to a working dog back home, if Your Majesty will forgive me saying so plainly. I'll forgive worse than plain speaking today, Zara said. What do you need? Grain, protein if you can spare it, but grain first, and I need it before the moon base resupply, not after. If Nyakundu makes their move on Asande while my people are eating half rations, I won't have soldiers left standing to matter, whatever the numbers on paper say. Zara looked at Abessier. Abessier looked at the map. You'll have it, Zara said. I don't yet know from where, but you'll have it. Understood, Majesty. The line closed. The room did not, for a moment, say anything at all. The particular silence of people who had just heard, plainly, exactly how thin the thread had gotten, and did not yet know how to respond to hearing it out loud. It was Councillor Femi who broke it, an older man from Kuyiko whose disapproval of Zara had never quite found the courage to become open defiance. Only this, small, persistent erosions, offered up as concern. Your Majesty, if I may. You may not stop yourself regardless of what I say, so go on. A ripple of something that was almost laughter moved through 2 of the younger councillors and died fast under Femi's look. I only mean a decision of this weight, the kind that touches both the army and the people at once. It is the sort of thing a king's council might have eased for you, a second mind in the room that answers to no one but you. You mean a husband. I mean support, Majesty. Tell me, Femi. Zara did not raise her voice. She had learned 20 years ago that she rarely needed to. In the 4 years I sat as heir before this crown ever touched my head, did you offer that same concern to King Abenu? Did you tell him a wife's counsel would ease the weight of a decision, or did you simply let him carry it the way a king is trusted to? Femi did not answer. I have carried this weight since I was 20 years old and unmarried, and I will go on carrying it exactly the same way tomorrow. When you find the courage to ask me a question you'd actually ask a king, I'll answer it. Until then, find me grain. She did not wait for a response. She had learned that too. Chapter 2. 3 floors below the surface of the Asande jump station, in a briefing room that smelled permanently of recycled air and the burnt metal tang of the comma ray overhead, Routendo set down the crystal and did not immediately speak. 12. She had said the number out loud to the Queen, the way she had trained herself to say all hard numbers, flat, fast, no room in her voice for anyone to mistake her grief for weakness. It was harder to keep flat now that she was alone with it. Lieutenant Okonjo knocked once and entered without waiting to be told, which she had long since stopped correcting him for, because he was usually right to. Orders from the palace, General. Read them. We're to hold position. No advance on the ridge, no retaliatory strike. The Queen wants the line held quiet, not pushed. Command believes Nyakundu forces are staging for a move on Asande, and the moon relay both, and she doesn't want us drawing their attention early. He hesitated. There's a supplementary note. Grain shipment incoming. Priority routing. No estimated arrival. Routendo almost laughed. Almost. Of course there isn't. General? Nothing. She rubbed a hand once across her eyes, the closest she allowed herself most days to looking tired in front of anyone under her command. Get the perimeter scouts doubled at the relay tower. If they're staging for Asande, I want to know before they know we know. Yes, General. He left. She did not, for a long moment, do anything at all. Just stood with both hands flat on the cold metal table, in a room 3,000 kilometers and 20 years away from a woman she used to be able to picture perfectly and now could only guess at. Hold quiet, she thought. We've been holding quiet for 20 years. I don't know what loud would even sound like anymore. Chapter 3. On the red ground below, in a command tent that had not moved in 6 months because there was nowhere left worth moving it to, General Muanza read the dispatch from Nyakundu's high command twice, the way she read everything that came with Luce's seal on it, once for the words, and once for whatever the words were quietly built to conceal. Kadiri Ridge secured. 12 enemy casualties confirmed. Proceed as ordered. Moon relay next. She had given that order herself 2 nights ago, standing exactly where she was standing now. She had known, giving it, that it would land somewhere on the other side of the war she could not see and did not need to. That some report with a number on it would eventually reach a command room on Muntu soil, and that somewhere behind that report, if the woman she'd raised was still the woman she remembered, there would be a daughter reading it and feeling the number the way a mother would want her not to have to. 8 years since Routendo had written to her. 8 years since the letters had simply stopped, the way weather stops, without an ending anyone announces. Muanza did not know most days whether her daughter still thought of her as an enemy or simply as someone she had buried the way you buried anyone you couldn't afford to keep carrying. She suspected, if she was honest with herself, that it did not matter which. Grief did not much care about the shape of its cause. She set the dispatch down and looked instead at the star charts pinned to the tent's far wall, tracing the long, ugly line that now stood between Nyakundu and the moon relay, a line that should have taken a fraction of the time it would now take if the jump gate had still been standing. Months instead of days. Months of fighting through entrenched Muntu strongholds the long way, world by world, star by star, because someone, she still did not know who or why, only that the order to destroy the gate had come from the very top and had never once been explained to anyone below it, had decided that gate was worth losing. The moon relay, she thought, and something in her chest went very still. That's where they'll be waiting. She did not know her daughter was stationed there. She had no way of knowing. But some old animal part of her, the part that had carried Routendo before she'd ever carried a rank, went quiet and watchful all the same, the way a body sometimes knows a storm is coming before the sky says a single word about it. Chapter 4. On Nyakundu, in the high chamber that had once been Kahari's own council room and now belonged to no one but the woman who had claimed it, Luz read the same dispatch with considerably more satisfaction than anyone else that morning had managed. 12. A small number, in the shape of a war this old, but the right 12. Soldiers pulled off the Asande approach 2 days before they'd have been needed there, which meant the relay would be thinner than Muntu's own command yet realized. She set the report aside and looked instead at the narrow cell block below the chamber's east window, where 7 Muntu citizens sat under Nyakundu guard, taken in a raid on a supply convoy the week before, engineers mostly. One low-ranking administrator who had not stopped weeping since the second day. She had not decided yet exactly what use they would be. She rarely decided that kind of thing in advance. It was enough for now to know they existed, that somewhere down the line, when Muntu wanted something badly enough, she would have something to trade for it that cost her nothing at all to keep. She thought distantly of a woman she had once loved calling her my love in a letter that felt now like it belonged to someone else's life entirely. She did not think of it for very long. There was a war to run, and grief, whatever hers might once have looked like, had long since stopped being useful to her. Chapter 5. 20 years. Nelly had stopped counting the exact days somewhere around year 6, when the counting itself had started to feel like its own kind of madness, but the years she still kept, the way you keep the shape of a wound even after it's stopped actively hurting. She sat on the edge of the safe house roof that overlooked what had once been Nyakundu's outer market district, mostly rubble now, and did the thing she still let herself do only at night, when no one, not her Mulilo contacts, not the dwindling handful of people who still trusted her with anything at all, could see her face doing it. She thought about Musonda. 20 years, she thought, not for the first time. And he never came back for me. She did not know, could not have known, not from where she sat, cut off from every honest channel of information the Crown might once have used to reach her, that he had never made it further than the jump gate itself before it stopped existing, and him along with it, as far as anyone left alive on Nyakundu had ever been told. She did not know he had survived at all. She knew only the plain, small, devastating fact she had been carrying alone for 2 decades, that they had made a deal once in a world that no longer resembled anything she could point to and call safe. He would deliver what they knew to the Queen. He would come back for her. He had not come back. She had built a whole shape of him in her head to make the absence bearable. A man who had simply chosen, once he was free of Nyakundu, not to return to a mutant he'd barely managed to befriend, a woman with nothing to offer him but risk. It was easier, some nights, to believe he'd abandoned her on purpose than to sit with the alternative, which was that something out here, in this war she had never asked to be stranded inside of, had simply swallowed him the way it swallowed everyone eventually. Somewhere above her, past the dust and the thin red sky, a fire burned faint and low from a wound the flame had never quite managed to seal since her transformation had first taken hold, all those years ago. She wrapped her arms around her knees and let it burn there, unwatched, the only honest thing left to her that no one else could take.